Everyone
Well,
should
they have
have
them at the
cookies.
Magnolia every night, milk and
Oh, that's
cookies. I'm like,
horrible.
no.
That's
The
horrible.
waitress was like, the person who brought my dinner last night. She's like, "Are you going to get?" I was like, "No, I'm not. Thank you. No."
And yeah, and they're forcing it on you. Okay,
Right?
so
It's free. No.
right, so uh, they do out here. There's lots of folks that were pretty senior in some aspect or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just kind of milling around, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I know. What are you
Well,
doing?
Rob and I, Rob Long, who's the associate administrator for SBA now, he and I were texting. We arrived around the same time on different flights, and we have not been able to connect. We have
Oh
talked by
yeah, yeah,
text the
yeah,
whole time we've been here.
yeah, yeah.
Could
That's
not get
funny.
into the same spot.
That's yeah. That happens
Isn't
here.
that funny?
Yeah, no, it is.
I'm like,
It's
okay, I'm at the cafe, but I think you're speaking now. But when I'm gonna leave and go back to, So we're like, maybe we can walk through, but it just didn't happen. I think he's
yeah.
leaving tonight, so he's gone.
There are a bunch of folks I know that are heading out tonight so that they can get Friday back in the office or start the weekend early or both or
Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it's always
It's a pretty decent crowd.
yeah. No, this is
Not
okay.
too
This is
bad.
okay. So we'll give them. I mean, it's maybe two. We can give folks a couple minutes. I think
Hmm. Yeah,
folks are
they're
shaking
they're
themselves
like
away
getting
from
in.
lunch. They're
Right.
shaking themselves away from lunch.
Shaking themselves awake. Yeah. The after lunch crowd. Ugh. That was so good to see him. So we'll grab dinner tonight, which is nice. He's like my dinner buddy.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, we were in San Antonio together.
That's right. They
Had
get
margaritas under the
nice.
bridge
Oh, that's pretty nice there. I've done that. That's
on the
pretty nice.
Riverwalk. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Oh
nice
yeah, it was
setup.
so
They did that.
nice.
City planning for that was really amazing when I first time I saw it.
So great.
Hey, I remember the guy in red shirt at the door scanning people in.
Hmm.
He was a peerman last year. I
Oh,
just retired from the army, and
yeah,
he
he
said,
gave
"Hey,"
me his card.
I'm just giving back to the comics, just
That's so
volunteering to
nice.
just no agenda, just helping out. Somebody's gonna help out.
Yeah.
Make me feel guilty, right? He's doing something great, right?
That's so funny. I love seeing people. I'm such a people person. I'm
Yeah.
totally stimulated right now.
That's so
Just
funny, right?
two
Because
people.
you're in a conference full of engineers, and we're just all people incompetent, right? We don't know people, right? I'll be at some meeting at work, it's an HR meeting or something. I'm like, you're talking to a room full of engineers. Of course you're frustrated. We can't do what you're asking us to do. We're just asking you to talk to people. That's my point.
Right. No, I took a class where I had a bunch of engineers, and I was considered one of the creative people. And so there's two of us. So they kept trying to move us at different tables to add that value to the table. And
Right.
we had this exercise where I had to describe a picture, and they had to draw it. So to me,
Oh my God. I could not have turned that. That had to be. Oh. Oh.
to me, the picture looked like a house. So I said, "What kind of looks like a house?" And so we get to the end, and I'm able to show them the picture. And he's like, "There's a triangle at the top, like a
Yeah.
house, and there's a box." And this guy goes, "Why didn't you just say it was a triangle at the top and a square that's 2 by 2?" And I was like, that's a really good point. I guess I just don't think that way.
That's
But
exactly.
thank you for your input.
That's exactly right. Well, we still have people stream in.
Yeah.
Hey. Hey, good afternoon. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Hey, we still have people coming in, so we're going to give folks a minute or two to come in.
It was so funny, and the teacher was like, "That's why we had her do it, because we wanted you to understand that people have different perspectives." And then they give an example of going to an office where the door was a little off the hinge.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "How would you respond to that?" So, of course, most of the room wants to fix it.
Yeah.
And the creative people are like, "That is so funny. There's a door." And we just walk on in.
They're like, let's replace the wall. Right? That's the engineers I know. Hello. Good. How are you, Jim? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, you can get my. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thank you. Thank
There
you.
probably won't be any questions because she's such an adept speaker that we're gonna have this covered.
We'll see.
But boy, I like having a plan. Okay. All right. What do you say we kick it off?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, okay, it's on. Hey, Dave Ray, can you hear me? Dave Ray, can you hear me? All right. Hey, Dave, thanks. All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Hurley. I'm moderating or facilitating this panel, this session this afternoon. I am the Deputy Manager of Engineering for Bechtel's Nuclear Security Environmental Business Unit, and it's my pleasure to be working with you here today. I hope you're having a great conference. I hope everyone's not too tired after lunch, and you're not too worn out. We were just up here talking about, does being around all these people exhaust you, or does it like inspire you, right? And as an engineer introvert, right, I get pretty exhausted. I think we have an extrovert here. Christy is pretty fired up right now, so I think you're going to be the benefiter of that. Sammy, as we launch into this, so I think, and all of you have been with Sammy for a while know this. Sammy is a great organization. It's founded about 100 years ago, with the intent of helping the military partner with industry to better provide for national security and defense, right? And I think Joe Schrodel, if you were at yesterday morning's kickoff meeting, he tried to expand all of our minds that, let's not just focus on, the smallest, narrowest definition of what Sammy could be, but try to expand that into something bigger, right? And I thought that was a great point. And so I've been thinking about that, and really it's a partnership between industry and the government, really, to help with national security, right? That's fundamentally what Sammy's about, that one. And in today's day and age, I don't see how you could have a conversation about security without talking about energy and energy programs, right? So Sammy is very fortunate. Normally we're pretty limited to just having the defense community come and speak and provide business opportunities or strategies. But today we're really fortunate to have Christy Jackowitz with us, and I'll introduce her in a moment. But she's from the Department of Energy to talk about work with the Department of the Energy. And I do think that fits nicely into Sammy and what Sammy is aspiring to do to help with national security. So before I introduce Christy to all of you, though, and then give her an opportunity to present her material, I did want to introduce all of you to Christy, because I don't think she's been at a Sammy small business event before. So we're gonna do a show of hands here, and I ask everyone to participate in show of hands, right? So if you're here representing a small business, right, please raise your hand, right? All right. If you're here part of the behemoth large business conglomerate take over the world companies, raise your hand, right? So that's me, right? Okay. If you're part of the federal government team, whether that's with the Corps, NAVFAC, or someone else, raise your hand, right? If you're in uniform, it's a hint, you have to raise your hand, colonels, right? We know you. Okay. If this is your first National Small Business Conference, kind of raise your hand. So first time, all right. Ooh, good first time turnout there. All right. If you have DoD contracts already, raise your hand. Okay, so a lot of DoD contracts. Is there anybody out there that has Department of Energy contracts right now? Raise your hand. Oh, so good turnout on DOE contracts too. So that's fantastic. All right. So great participation on that one. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to our prime speaker here. So it's kind of my privilege to introduce Christy Jackowitz to you. Christy is the Deputy Director for the Department of Energy's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. She's got 30 years of leadership experience in the federal government across a wide range of functions, human resources, contracting, policy, budget. Brings really a wealth of experience in all those disciplines to us here. She's instrumental currently in helping DOE leadership develop kind of the strategies for implementing White House initiatives and administration priorities, which I think is great. Somehow she finds the time to also do some executive coaching and wellness coaching across the federal community, which I think is very laudable. Really demonstrates that if you're willing to do that, you definitely do care about people and their personal development. So that says a lot. She's got a master's in business and a slew of certificates from little-known small colleges in Massachusetts like Harvard and other places. So if you'd join me in welcoming Christy, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Listening to the questions, I thought that was pretty interesting. And one question I think that was missed was large businesses that are helping small businesses. How many of you are doing that? That's what I love to see. So this particular presentation is still kind of in the works, and I'm going to pause a few times to make sure we kind of are very clear. I also brought a few handouts, and I also brought our current forecast. We just had a service-disabled veteran-owned event where we did a kind of tailored forecast update because we're in the process of trying to do that more regularly, but we really wanted to have opportunities for that event. So I brought a copy of that with me if anyone's interested in seeing some of the opportunities. I'll talk about a few of them, but the list is certainly too long for the presentation. So we'll go over a few things. Hopefully everyone knows the mission of DOE, especially all the people who raise their hands and are already working for DOE. We are focused on environmental cleanup, energy conservation, nuclear weapons. It's so interesting to kind of throw that all together, but it is a really advanced agency looking very forward at all the opportunities that we can work together and do good things for this country and also protect this country. This is a slide I want to spend a little bit of time on. I found myself explaining this a lot, and so I had one of my staff create an infographic for me to help walk you through this. So I'm going to use my laser pointer, and I do have copies of here in case anyone wants to take this home with them. So a lot of people don't understand how DOE is constructed, and it's very different than other federal agencies. We're often called a subcontracting agency, and that's because most of our labs and sites generate the income for the work that we do, or the spend. They spend the money. So this year, for 2020, we're looking at $32 billion in procurement spend, and about 20% of that spend is in headquarters. Only 20%, maybe 15%. Headquarters has contracts like IT, administrative services, very kind of basic contracting. The rest of the money is in our labs and sites, or M&O contractors. That's management and operation contractors. And back in 2014, legislation was passed to allow those contractors to operate as like a mini DOE. So these are independent companies like Bechtel and NREL, Oak Ridge, National Laboratories. But instead of them being our prime contractor, legislation said, you know what, they've been around so long that it's okay to consider them like another part of DOE. And so looking in the gray circle, this is kind of the whole agency, so to speak. Even though they're independent, they still have that connection to us. So when they do a contract in these orange circles, orange squares, when they do a contract, that is our prime. So how many people are familiar with this concept of DOE? Just a few. That's great. So when they contract, that's the prime, and this would be you. And then when you contract, that would be the sub. So when we calculate our prime and subcontracting goals, the prime is going to be you. So even on paper, you may say, okay, but I'm subbing to that lab. When we calculate everything, you are considered a prime. And what has happened with that is, even though you don't see it published, we're working on that, when the goals are published by the Small Business Administration, it only shows the procurement spend through the federal procurement data system. It doesn't even show any classified spend. This spend is done by MOSRC for management operating contracts. So it's the management operating capabilities, something or other, subcontracting capability reporting system. I can never remember the acronym, but we call it MOSRC. And MOSRC calculates what those dollars are for the primes, and then we add them together with the dollars from FPDS. So for 2019, Our goal was 11.65, and we hit about 15% of that 32 billion with small businesses. So we far exceeded our small business goals. So I get a lot of people who say, hey, DOE is not meeting their small business goals. We absolutely are, and we're far exceeding the goals as well. For this year, for 2020, SBA has established a 14% goal for us, which we expect to exceed as well. Where we are struggling are in the small business subcategories or social economic categories, and that would be the hub zone, woman-owned, service-disabled veteran, and 8A categories. What we are trying to do to improve in those categories is working with the labs and sites. So a lot of times I will go out to these labs and I will visit them, and I will actually look at what they're doing with small businesses. I will co-host events with them so they can bring small businesses into the labs. We just had one with Honeywell, and we had about 50 businesses that attended, and they actually brought opportunities to the event, sat down with the businesses who said they could do the work, and tried to put some contracts in place directly with them because they have that ability. So even though they're part of DOE, they have deviations from the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and they're able to do contracting a little differently than if you were working directly with headquarters. Okay? So I do encourage you, we use GovDelivery to post some of these events and to let businesses know about it. If there is a lab that you really want to work with and you haven't been able to get in the door, or you're not sure how to do that, when we host these events, it's a great opportunity. And even if it's marketed, say, to Hub Zone or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, any small business can attend. We're just trying to tackle that small business category where we're falling short, but any small businesses can attend and any small business can meet that procurement. We're also looking at some of the reviews. So one of the things that we do to advocate for small businesses is to look at the procurement plan and see if it's the proper market research has been done. For DOE, we actually don't see anything under $3 million. And that's a lot of work that we miss. But at the 3 million or higher mark, we are supposed to see those opportunities. But again, there's deviations in the labs, so they don't have to submit those to the OSDBU. How many people know what an OSDBU is? Oh, good, at least 10 of you. So the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization was established by Congress to make sure there was an advocate in place in every federal agency, or the main federal agencies, about 24 of them, to help identify those opportunities and advocate for you to have them. We have kind of two parts in the OSDBU. One is outreach, which I'm in charge of. And outreach is focused on going to events, talking with businesses one-on-one, helping to educate them on how to do business with our agency. And each federal agency has an OSDBU, and we're pretty much broken up the same way. We also have an in-reach, which is focused on working with the other customer, which is the buyer. And what we do with the buyer is we try to elevate the small business to the buyer and help them see the value of working with businesses. Now, we don't highlight a company. We don't say work with ABC. But what we do is we say, okay, this is a procurement that you're looking at, and we can identify at least 10 small businesses that can do this work. So not setting it aside is there's no real good justification. They have to prove to us that that they can do full and open and not set aside. The challenge in Department of Energy is the high threshold for which we would see a procurement, and also these M&O contractors for which they don't have to show us what they're purchasing. The other good thing that's happening in DOE is that we have set small business goals for them. So even though they have deviations from the FAR where they don't have to present their procurement process to us, they do have small business goals that they're supposed to achieve, and that's tied into OSDBU as far as visibility. So they submit those goals to us every year, and when they're successful with their goals, we acknowledge them with an award ceremony. So every year, our annual conference, if you have attended, you will see that at the award ceremony, different labs are acknowledged for the work they're doing with small businesses. And this is a very coveted award because it also helps secure some of their working with the agency and continuing the work that they want to do. What I have found in visiting the labs independently and really talking with everyone is that by having that face time with them, it definitely has elevated the importance of working with small businesses. And I do see a shift in really focusing on how we can do more work. Since 2017, we have seen a constant uptick of how many small business contracts have been awarded, and we've constantly exceeded the small business goal higher and higher. So when I came on board, I think we were at 6%, and we went to about 10% in small business contracting. Then it was like 10.2, and we did 11.65. Then they gave us another 10.2 because there was a goal, because there was an issue with changes in SBA. So instead of changing people's goal, they kept it at 10.2, and then we went in even higher than that. So every year now we're at like 15%. So every year we have done more and more work with small businesses and more contracting, and that's of $30 billion. So you may be comparing other agencies and saying, oh, well, they did, 10% or 20%, but 20% of what, right? It makes a difference. So a huge amount of money is being spent with small businesses. Does this help kind of break down how this agency is designed and where the money is? Because that's where I really want to direct you. Going into headquarters, that's certainly a first instinct, but that's not where the money is. You're really going to be the most successful in contracting with our labs and sites. So some of the focus areas, as we discussed earlier, are certainly scientific, not just the science that happens in the labs, but innovative science as well. There's a huge grant that went out through ARPA-E. How many people are familiar with ARPA-E? Not many. So ARPA-E is a program in the Department of Energy that provides money for research and development. And there was a $20 million grant through ARPA-E for research on artificial intelligence and improving learning machines. We have one of the most powerful learning machines in our agency, and they're looking to make it even smarter, which is a little scary, but it's also very exciting. So ARPA-E has different grants for different projects. So if you have innovative ideas or innovative solutions, you can look on the ARPA-E website, and it's ARPA-E. You can look on the ARPA-E website and see what kind of funding they're providing. Now, sometimes people will send in suggestions that are not listed, and there's still an opportunity to have that funded. They can still review those innovative ideas and look at providing funding for that, but they're usually focused on what they are publishing as an interest to them. Nuclear security, certainly very big for our agency. We have a whole kind of autonomous office just dedicated to nuclear energy and nuclear security. And then environmental responsibility, certainly environmental management and cleanup, trying to manage the nuclear waste as well, and doing a lot of work with that. Is anybody in here not part of one of these three? Okay, so this may not be for you, but we do have some other kind of contracting that are smaller buckets. IT is pretty much taken up by CBOS. I'm sure many of you have heard about CBOS. We do have some administrative contracts and other things. If you do not fit in one of these buckets, please come talk to me so we can maybe look at the forecast and see if there's any opportunities coming up that might be a good fit for you, okay? So just to help you narrow down even further, we kind of provided our top 5 NAICS for prime contracting and subcontracting. So I won't read that to you, but I think it's good for you to kind of have a pulse on what the agency is spending its money on. And then, of course, you know about the Manhattan Project, right, and how it all got started with nuclear. So I won't go too much into that, but it's, something that I think is educational. If you haven't learned, you can just Google Manhattan Project and learn a lot, maybe more than you ever wanted to know. We do have a unique structure because we have NNSA, the National Nuclear, I'm terrible with these acronyms today, but it's nuclear, and then we have DOE headquarters. We do have 2 senior procurement executives. So the SPE, or Senior Procurement Executive, is in charge of ensuring that acquisitions are done appropriately within rules and regulations and meeting the mission of the agency. So there's one at NNSA, Keith Hamilton, and there's one in headquarters, John Bashista. We also have 12 heads of contracting authority, which are HCAs, you may hear that. And then we have 15 SBA procurement center representatives, or PCRs. And those PCRs work in conjunction with OSDBU and other procurement leaders to ensure those fair practices are done, market research and things like that in the procurement process. We do have, and this is the one that nobody likes, 18 different acquisition forecasts. And the reason for that is going back to the diagram that I showed you. Each of those 17 labs and sites have their own acquisition forecasts. They are independent companies. And so what they are planning to buy is going to be on their website as opposed to linked directly to DOE. However, because we know this is information that you need, what I have done in redesigning the website is we actually put all the links on one page so that you can get to all 18 of the forecasts as opposed to trying to find where all these offices are. So hopefully that helps to expedite the process. And on this particular forecast that I have with me today, we did pull from some of those different forecasts. Usually our forecast only has headquarters information, but because we were preparing for the events that I had going on the last couple months, we wanted to give you something a little more meatier. And there's 22 M&Os, management and operation contractors, 36 different sites, and then 80 plus small business program managers. So small business program managers are like an extension of the OSDBU arm. They are in the different labs and sites. They work as advocates for you to contract with that office. They are usually very familiar with the opportunities going on in that office. And we have a directory that tells you per lab who the SBPM is. And so that is on the website as well. And I also have a copy with me here today. So some of the challenges in working with DOE that you will run into are certainly all the contracting sources and who to talk to and when to talk to them. So in having the directory, if you are doing your research and you have found an opportunity you think you can respond to, at least you can get to the small business program manager that's in charge of helping with procurement and creating opportunities for small businesses. There's also the high dollar value that small businesses are looking for. Some of those projects may be a little small, may not be exactly what you're looking for, but it does build opportunity for you and allows you to kind of get your foot in the door. And that's always the focus when we're working with small businesses who haven't contracted with DOE before, certainly getting your foot in the door. And for those who have contracted, being able to access some of the other labs and sites for the way you're working in another one. So SBPMs know each other, and it's good for them to help with meeting other small business program managers so that you can get more visibility in a different part of our agency. For best practices, I would say definitely research what opportunities are available and really understanding what the labs and sites are working on. One thing that's lovely about them is that they really do put what they're focused on their site. So if you go to their website, you're not going to be confused as to what they do and what their focus is. And that just takes a lot of time for you to do that because there are 17 of them. But once you start getting keyed in and you understand what the needs are and you see the opportunities and you're able to respond, then that is just probably half of it. I would also say mentor protege program. We have our own at Department of Energy. And so if you're able to work with one of the labs and sites as a mentor, that's a really great opportunity as well. I just hosted a Centers of Excellence by our Savannah River site. And they have about 4 or 5 proteges that they're working with. And they bring them in not only to get opportunities in subcontracting work, but also for business development. So if they need to grow in how they're managing their finances or how they're, finding opportunities within Savannah River, and then also making those connections. So one of the things that happened in the Centers of Excellence is we had kind of a brainstorming session on how we could build their visibility for the other sites. So that's something that I think if you haven't considered, that mentor protege program would be a great opportunity. And Mark Lochbaum in my office is the lead for that, and I'd be happy to share his information if you're interested. I think to target your engagement, cultivate your resources. None of this is new. I think most of the people who raised their hand have worked with us before, and you're probably more focused on the opportunities. So one thing, if you haven't, how many people have been to our conference, our annual conference? Just a few of you. So the annual conference is probably the biggest bang for the buck. We have all of our labs and sites, pretty much all of them are attending. Their plan is to meet with small businesses and understand what opportunities are out there that they can connect with. And they have individual sessions on how to work with their particular lab or site. So if you're confused and you're trying to figure out how to get in, not only do you get to meet the person or people who are running those labs, but you also get to learn what they are looking for specifically in their contractors to work with them. They go through it in detail, and they really are very specific about what their needs are, and they also share opportunities that they currently have that they're looking for businesses to fulfill. So if you haven't attended the conference, I really encourage you to do so. Every year it's gotten bigger and better. We will be in Charleston next year. If you wouldn't mind passing me the spreadsheet, yeah. So I just want to spend a tiny bit of time, and I'll just put my slide up so you have my information. A little bit of time talking about what we have on the forecast. And I'm just going to go through kind of the acquisition description just to give you some idea. And if anyone wants to look at this, I'm happy to share this with you. But drainage improvements, groundwater well activities, site management support, environmental safety and health support, asphalt paving, mutual defense agreement with United Kingdom, physical protection services, corporate security. And I wanted to read some of these to you because I think when you hear the opportunities, you're like, okay, yes, that's me, or no, that's definitely not something that I do. We even have convention and trade show organizers, custom design build, equipment rental, modular instrumentation, stair tower and crossover stairs, and replacing aging microwave spurs, right? So this is a pretty healthy opportunity list. Everything is scheduled for 2020, so it's upcoming opportunities. And we really want you to feel like the door's open, that we want to work with you. And that's why we're attending all these events and trying to show up in places that we don't always come, because we recognize the value and want to keep making sure we're bringing those, making those connections. So I'm happy to answer any questions about our agency, if there are any questions.
If we don't ask 5 questions, they don't give us cupcakes. So you gotta ask questions.
Yes. Sure. So his question is, I mentioned Gov Delivery as a way for you to have access to some of the events that we're hosting and some of the targeted outreach that we're doing specifically for HubZone Woman Owned. And so on our website, energy.gov/OSDBU, which stands for Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, there is a sign-up section at the bottom of that screen, of the first screen that you come on, and you can just put your email address in there, and you will be added to our list. We can't reach out to you and say, put your name on there because of the Paper Reduction Act. We have to be careful of any burden to small businesses, but we really, really want you to do it because it's the way we reach you. So, yes, you can sign up there. You're welcome. Hello.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have your own mentor protege program.
Yes.
Which is totally separate from the SBA's program.
Yes.
So have you considered maybe having like a prelude, like an apprentice program? So, for example, most people who are in the All Smalls Mentor Protege, either 8A or just regular small business, under that they have what is called a limitation of subcontracting that could afford an opportunity for a small business who wants to slowly migrate, say, for example, they're not quite ready to be part of the mentor protege program, but they want to slowly migrate, and so like an apprentice program. Have you guys considered that?
So we don't have an apprentice program, but you can have both. You can have an all small and a DOE mentor protege. And the mentor protege program is designed so that you work with the mentor, so one of the labs or DOE contractors that you want to work with, and it can be as baby steps as you need or as advanced as you need. So you don't have to go full in. You could, whatever your needs are, that's what the mentor is there for. And we review the agreement and we monitor it, and we have them do a summary report twice a year to let us know how they're working with you, but also we have the protege let us know how it's going as well, so that we can ensure there's a good relationship. So there's not an apprenticeship, but there is control over how deep that experience is or how light it is. So there is an opportunity to, we don't match either, but there is an opportunity to reach out to those labs and sites and find out, especially with the small business program managers, if they're looking for more proteges, especially if it's in the work that they do. So it would be specific to the type of work that lab is doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi there.
Hi.
I recently had a contact at one of the labs tell us that a future acquisition was going to go through the Supply Chain Management Center.
Okay.
Can you explain where that fits into the various?
So I can show you on the directory and help you with a point of contact. But, each of the supply chain centers are often within each of the labs. Some of them have a focus of just making sure those businesses are working with them. So it may not be a one-off place. It may be something within that lab. Did they tell you it was within a lab?
The impression was that it was
Separate?
applicable to multiple of the labs.
Yeah, so there may be something they're doing together that I'm not familiar with. So they do sometimes, depending on the type of work, if it's similar work, they may have a supply chain group that they pull from. But I could look into that and see if I can find out anything for you, if you want to give me your business card before you leave.
My name is Cal Barty. I'm with the Myanmar Architects and Engineers. I will ask two questions so the Colonel get the cupcake. So the first question is the follow-up on the mentor protege.
Yes.
So does it count towards maximum mentors and proteges we can have?
So there is a limit on the number, and that is a little flexible. When I review the agreement, I am looking for a substantial amount of support from that mentor to the protege and not a checkbox that they now have a small business under them. So if they can show that there's a lot of opportunity, I'm comfortable with maybe extending the number of proteges or extending the agreement. So the agreement is usually a couple years and then it expires. But if they say, hey, we want to extend it a few more years, then I want to see how are you going to do something new with that small business, and how are you going to make an additional difference, and not just, because unfortunately some businesses want to say I have a small business and they want access to maybe some of the opportunities that are set aside, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that there's actually a developmental piece for you. So there's some flexibility for us, and sometimes we can extend the number of proteges that they can have.
No, but it's not mixed with the SB. If you have SBA,
you can have both. So you can have two. You can have as many mentors as it will work for you. Yeah.
so they are separate from yours.
Yes, all small is separate from the DOE Mentor Protege program.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question is, we have a current contract with the headquarters for NE services, and as we going forward, we are learning about your facilities. And can you talk about briefly, you said there's 36 sites, and one of our tasks was to look at the facility condition assessment, all the bridges you have. So that was a surprise to us. So I didn't know inside the labs what other facilities or sites you have, some brief.
So you're asking about management of the site where the lab is, or are you talking about federal facility buildings?
What I'm saying is, this is the first time I'm hearing that you have the labs.
Okay.
And like you will probably have some dams and bridges, and what else DOD does besides the Germantown and the first headquarters.
Right, right. So, so DC and Germantown would be considered headquarters, and anything outside of that would be the labs and sites, but they are an extension of DOE, and there are individual opportunities there. The big challenge with that is identifying what those opportunities are, and so you do have to contact the labs themselves. I don't have a list of everything that they're doing, but I do have a sheet here of some of the opportunities that are coming up in 2020. Okay.
In the past, there were some projects that DOE did, infrastructure, some light buildings, that sort of thing, that were done with the Army Corps of Engineers. Is the Corps of Engineers still supplying things to DOE, or has the M&O contractors now subsumed all of that? Do they do all of those kinds of projects, or do they still use the Corps in some location?
Yeah, I actually don't know if the Corps is involved in that. That's something I can find out for you. I know that the M&Os are doing the majority of the work, but there's certainly so many lines of engagement that, it's hard to know everything that's happening, especially if it's classified. So there may be pieces that are involved that I'm not aware of, but I can find out for you. Are you with the Corps of Engineers? No. Well, I can find out for you if they're doing any work.
Yes, I'm Gene Blick. I work with Wood. It's a large business. And we're working with small business. They'll be the prime
Okay.
for a $500 million subcontract to an M&O. Probably the largest small business award to be made by an M&O in 2020. And the M&O is proposing to use an awarding technique, employing the concept called reverse auction on pricing. I think everyone in this room probably knows what that is.
Yeah.
It's not smiling.
Well, I'm smiling because I came from GSA.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, yes, it's coming again.
I'll just speak up and say we've spoken to the M&O and told them we don't think that's in the best interest of small business. And I was wondering if your office has any influence in how M&Os use different contracting tools to place their subcontracts with small businesses.
So we don't have a lot of influence on M&Os, again, because they have the deviation from the FAR. They're independent companies. They're able to work fairly autonomously. But I would say from an OSBU relationship perspective, there's always influence. People that, especially going out to the labs and meeting with people, there's a lot of influence. So if you want to give me a little bit of information, even like some talking points, I would be happy to pass that on to the director and see if he's willing to take that on. And he has monthly meetings with SPEs, and so he's always looking for things he can bring up to them. So that might be a really good topic.
Any more questions?
Okay, well, thank you so much for this opportunity to share about DOE. And I have slides up here, some handouts of that diagram I showed you, and my business cards if you want to reach out to me later. Thank you.
They'll want to see it, but you're going to have 500 people taking pictures of it.
They can have it.
They can fight for it.